This is Truthful Manipulation, where truth is the truth and reality is made real and clear to understand. I'm Dave Kelsey, and I'm here today with my co-host, H. Daniel Mujahid.
Welcome to this week's show of Truthful Manipulation. We wanted to take advantage of everything that's going on right now. And let me just say everything that's going on in the media, in your neighborhood, in your family life, your community life. Let's take a look at what's really going on in terms of how you and how I am being manipulated. But before we do that, I wanted to take a moment I have a question for Dave, my colleague, but I wanted to set up a definition that he thought would be important for us. And this is the idea of a boomerang. And as you know, the boomerang is the thing you throw, and it goes out, and it makes an elliptical circle and comes right back to the person that threw it. Now, you think about what's going on in our federal government administration, in our communities, in Minnesota, and where you live. Think about how things are happening to people, hurting them, and think about a time that comes where the person who has the evil intention, when they throw it out at a target, whether it be a mother or orphan or an immigrant, or a person of a different color, or a person of a different religion, when they throw it out at them, it misses them. The thing misses. The evil intent that was intended by the person that threw it misses. But it comes back in an orbital pattern, almost like a bird or something, and it comes right back, what we call to the forehead of the person that threw it. The forehead meaning you're conscious, it becomes obvious what you've done. The evil that you intended is obvious, but is now being directed back to you as the conductor of the evil. And what do? And now what I wanted to go down the path we was discussing with Dave is when that happens, Dave, and the manipulator is caught, and the people realize it, whether they acknowledge it or complicit or not, but the reality of it is here now. What do you do, Dave?
But what do you do? I guess the question that you have to ask yourself is did I get up this morning with the intention to manipulate something? Or manipulate someone? Did I wake up with that intent? Or is it just something that happened along the way? Did I leave out some parts of the truth? Did I not give all the information they needed just so that I would get my own way? And Daniel, you left off one very important institution when you introduced this. You talked about the government and all the rest of that, but you left off the religious institutions that are manipulating today. And okay. I find that almost as repulsive as what's going on in our federal government. And the reason that I say that is I didn't expect the evangelicals that had warned us for years about what we're seeing go on right now. I didn't expect them to be the architects of the evil. And I didn't expect the evangelicals to be cheering on what I'm seeing and the manipulations that they're putting forward. They all need to be ashamed of themselves because they proclaim that they're following the teachings of Jesus Christ, but their actions show something far different. And that manipulation is even worse than the manipulation that's coming out of our evil government at this time, because the religions actually betrayed people. Our government's betraying people on a daily basis, but our religions betrayed their own constituents, because for years and years and years, they warned us that these things were going to happen. They warned us against cheering on misogynists. But yet now they stand back and call one of the most evil men to ever walk the face of the earth somehow or another their savior. And Daniel, I don't get how that manipulation isn't going to come back. And I know that you're going to speak from a total different viewpoint, but I don't know how that manipulation for a boomerang effect is not going to come back and knock these people straight between the eyes at some point along the way.
Hold it right there, Dave. Let's take that moment. We're in that moment now, America. This is where we are as a human being. This is where you are. This is where I am. Now, Dave, when you're talking about this face-to-face reality with the being, the thing that was evil that you intended, and it's coming back and it's right there face-to-face with you, you kind of walk us through that a little bit in terms of what's happening there in terms of the exposure or the damage, the real cause that's going on there. Walk us through that moment in the person's life, Dave.
Manipulation blows up in one of three ways, doesn't it? It normally will blow up in what you would refer to as exposure. And that's when whoever's doing the manipulating leaves out misleading details, or they have hidden motivation, or the contradiction that they do is so in your face. And that's what I'm seeing with the religion today. It's so contradictory from what they're supposedly believe, but then there becomes this pattern of recognition. And when they don't catch on to you once, they'll notice that you do the same thing. And that's what we're seeing in the religious community. They continue to over and over and over again use a pattern of manipulation to control their people. And what that causes, Daniel, is it causes collateral damage along the way. When your tactics are to win at any cost, it breaks trust with that person. And it's not just the trust with the person, it's the trust with the team, the trust with the customer, the trust with the spouse, the trust with the leader, the trust with evangelical organization, a trust with a client, a trust with parishioners. How do you control that collateral damage? Because your manipulation will be found out, and it will be called out at some point along the way. And this isn't to place blame on anybody in particular, but you have to understand, folks, today you're being manipulated all day long, one way or another, for good, for bad, for evil, for good. It doesn't matter. It's all a manipulation of some sort or another. But what we're
So, Dave, right here, you're saying, Dave, you're saying to us that it's not, it's not that the pastor got caught. It's not that the teacher is exposed, but you're saying that there's a cost that comes after this evil that we fail to calculate or add up. And this is an interesting point you're taking us down. Go further into you talked about this trust thing, and what happens, when the trust is broken. And, now you got people suspicious of each other and nobody's trusting and caring. Walk us down that, Dave. This is where we are in America.
This is where we are in America. But this is also, and I'm going to use the example of the evangelical church, because the contradiction from one hand to the other is so striking that it's hard to comprehend that you've got leaders that will say things, they'll do things, and then when they get caught, they do everything in their power to try to make it look as if it's somebody else's issue. Okay. Most of the time in the evangelical organizations, it's either money, power, or sex. Those are the three things that normally get preachers in trouble. But today, it's not just money, power, and sex. It's the flat out lies that are being told. I heard Franklin Graham come and say something this last week about something that was going on that was absolutely ridiculous, and all it was him trying to manipulate his parishioners into number one, trying to convince them that his point of view was correct. You're a preacher and you're condoning what you're seeing going on against other human beings that weren't advantaged like you've been your entire life. You are happy that people are being brutalized, and then you're pleased that Americans are being murdered. What in the hell is wrong with people today, Daniel? Can they not see that these manipulations are the point now where I'm beginning to think that we may not be able to come back from all of this because there's not a big enough resistance to the continuous and perpetual lies being perpetrated by those in power at every level.
I know in one of your writings you talked about the tendency that we have even as God-fearing people, this tendency to say, oh, well, they just made a mistake.
If today's episode's hitting home and you want a clear framework for recognizing manipulation and responding with integrity, check out our book, Truthful Manipulation, A Roadmap to Live By. It's built for real-life business, relationships, leadership, because the goal isn't to win, it's to win without losing yourself. And if you're new here, follow the Truthful Manipulation podcast for weekly conversations on spotting red flags, staying grounded under pressure, and choosing influence over control. Search Truthful Manipulation wherever you get your podcasts and grab the book to go deeper. Now back to the episode.
But actually, is it really just a mistake, or was it a plan that went awry?
Well, most of the time, Daniel, I don't believe that it starts out to be a plan at all. Okay. I think people manipulate to get their own way, but I don't think that they get up or go to bed the night before and go, you know what? Tomorrow, I'm going to try to screw as many people over as I possibly can. But what happens is they do manipulate, but then they get these other issues that come with that, don't they? Because then you have the fear of losing control, because your manipulation will be found out. And if you're trying to control everything, then what does that give these guys? It gives them this gigantic ego that they think that I'm above the law. I'm above the law of humanity. I'm above the law of human compassion. But that's not above the law. That's a human trait, and it's called a gigantic ego. And even in the religious text, it talks about not letting that ego get too big. Am I wrong, Daniel?
No, you're not.
So
There's go right ahead, Dave.
well, the question then becomes, so what do you do? What do you do when you're the one that's actually doing the manipulation, and all of a sudden that boomerang that you've thrown out there comes back and bips you dead between the eyes? What are you doing? Do you
Now, this, I want to remind our listeners, and hopefully in you sharing in your circles, you can also think of this. The human being is a creature of habit. And so, Dave, what you're talking about, these are learned behaviors that we're practicing. We've gotten comfortable with turning the eye, not speaking up, not speaking out. We've become comfortable. And these learned behaviors, they develop patterns. And so, Dave, to turn America around means we got to turn the habits around. How do we repair these habits that have existed? People have benefited from going along with evil and not standing up. That there's been a sense of personal wealth gain from being acknowledged as being a leader in a group, and the group is doing evil, but they get acknowledged as being okay. This pattern here is what you're addressing.
And that pattern, the only way that we can get around that and stop that is if we, the people that are being manipulated, stop defending and make those that are doing the manipulation own up to what they're doing. That's number one. We have to stop defending and make them start owning what they did.
Okay.
Number
so
two.
This idea of go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead. Ask me the question.
I guess I kind of want to really make sure that we're giving people real actions that will change what we're seeing, because if we don't change now, we might as well turn the lights out. And so I'm agreeing with you that we've got to look at these hardcore habits that are hard to change and their impact. But I also wanted you to kind of address, the reasons that we have for continuing or not.
Well, the reasons we have to continue is because as the human race, we don't really have a whole lot of choice. Our choices are to stand back and do nothing and let those that are in power take every right and manipulate us to the point where we have no say in anything going forward. And that's what the intention is. The intention isn't for the majority. The intention is to scare the majority into submission. And that I believe on the government's part is a cold calculation. And I believe that that's a calculation that's been put together by the GOP. And they've done it for a long, long time. They've done it under the disguise of a lot of different things. In fact, Daniel, I heard him talking about something the other day. They talk about this Save America Act. You've heard them talk about that lately? They talk about the Save America Act, but what they're not talking about is the original Save America Act that got implemented in the 90s that has put us in the position that we are on the political stage today. Because that Save America Act that they put together in the 90s allowed private people to band together and pretty much donate as much money as they wanted to a political party. And what's happened since then is the billionaire class tends to go with the GOP because the GOP tends to do things that are going to put more money in their pockets. And because of that, we've got the political system is now imbalanced. And it's imbalanced because the few can manipulate the outcome of things because of the amount of money that they can dump into it.
So you're arguing that the telling the truth has value today?
That's what we're doing. That's what we're telling you. We're telling you that the truth has value, even when those around you that tell you that they're telling the truth, but you know in the pit of your stomach that they're lying to you. People have said to me a lot over my career, they said, how did you deal with things and how did you know? And I said to them, I always had this thing that, my stomach would just talk to me if things weren't right or if they seemed off in some way or another. And I think maybe that helped me over the years be able to recognize those that were attempting to manipulate, but we always called them out for what they were trying to do. I remember at one point somebody saying to us something, and it came down to, it was like, you guys are trying to compare apples to oranges, and it's not the same thing. You may try to make it sound like the truth, but just because you make an apple sound like an orange doesn't mean you're going to make it taste like an orange. And just because you're telling what you believe to be the truth doesn't necessarily make it the truth. But when you look at this stuff, you got to figure out who the manipulators are. And if you're the manipulator, you got to look yourself in the mirror and go, what am I going to do to sort myself out?
Yes, but at that moment, Dave, whether it's the Sunday school teacher or the preacher or the teacher, at that point in time of being, when your evil is exposed that you've been doing to your community, to your neighborhood, to your family, etc., what do you say, Dave, to the person that comes back with, well, I'm sorry, it won't happen again?
That seems to be the simple question. It's not the I'm sorry. I would expect that out of anybody that's done wrong. I'm sorry. But that's not where the pavement meets the road, is it? It's not in what you say. It's in what you do after that. And that's what we would call where the rubber meets the road. Are you sorry? Or are you sorry you got caught? Are you sorry because you're sincerely sorry for your evil? Or you're sorry that your evil was exposed? Because those are two way different forms of sorry, Daniel. And today,
so where we fail, Dave, you're saying is that we fail to have accountable actions from that person that's doing wrong. We tend to set them up so that they can just repeat the action. There is no accountability or responsibility on how they're going to change. You would argue that has to be part of this process.
yes, it has to be part of the process, and you have to make them accountable going forward. I don't think that sorry is enough. I think that they need to write a formal apology. They're the ones that did the evil. They should have to write a formal apology. They should have to explain what they are going to do in the future and what they're not going to do in the future. And then, well, you know what the most important thing after that is, Daniel?
Go right ahead.
It takes time to reestablish the trust bond that's been broken, because sorry doesn't fix what you did. Sorry doesn't correct the hurt. Sorry doesn't correct the damage. Your actions showing that you are sorry going forward is what you should strive for.
What you're arguing for there now, Dave, is kind of like a prevention checklist. Can you give us some things that we can use to move the needle forward in the right way? That would perhaps be aspects of a checklist that we should hold a person that has done evil to.
Well, what I would say is the person that actually did evil, these are the questions that they need to ask themselves. Am I being honest or strategic with the truth?
Mm-hmm.
If this conversation were recorded, would I be proud to have it played?
Mm-hmm.
Am I seeking agreement or seeking understanding?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what am I afraid of if I'm fully transparent?
Mm-hmm.
And is this influence or is this manipulation? Those are the couple questions you have to ask. But here are the final thoughts for this week. And the final thought is, manipulation feels powerful right up until it's exposed. Integrity feels slower until it becomes your reputation. If you've ever had a moment where your tactic worked, but your conscience didn't, you already know the difference. And here's the question for you. Where do you see manipulation or blowing up most often? At work, relationships, leadership? I'm afraid we see it across all aspects of life today. But if we can recognize it, we can help put an end to it. And that's this week's episode of Truthful Manipulation. Please get a hold of us at truthfulmanipulation@gmail.com to comment on this week's show. You can follow us at Truthful Manipulation at truthfulmanipulation.com. Pick up a copy of our book, Truthful Manipulation, A Roadmap to Live By. It'll help you recognize some of these manipulations that go on and help you be a better leader without manipulation. Thank you very much for listening this week.